Hey you guys, welcome back to our 3-year pruning of a peach tree for 2025. We do have a 3-year for 2024 as well that you can visit, but we're going to do another one this year because if there's one thing that people need when they're learning to prune these trees is repetition, repetition. So in all the years I've been growing and pruning peach orchards and trees, and I usually always am training some people to do it with me every year. One of the things that really helps them that I've noticed is to go through and do the tree together so we can get a feel for the choices we're making and what the shape we're trying to get, what we're trying to get the tree to do. And so here we go again on another 3-year tree. And before we get started, let's take a look at our tools that we have with us today. Just our green waste dumpster. So we'll be chopping up the little pieces in 12 inches and just sticking them in the dumpster. And then first thing we have here that's most important is our handy dandy pruners. And this is one of my favorite pruners right here from Corona. It cuts 1-inch limbs, and it's all made out of steel, and it's just very reliable and it always sharpens really well. So that's favorite there. We have a little file, so we need to sharpen the blade just a little bit, and we don't want to file too much or we'll file it away, but just enough to sharpen it. And then we have our crescent wrench here just to adjust our nut should it start working its way loose just a little bit. We can always tighten it back up just a bit so that we get clean cuts and no hangnails. Have some WD-40 here for the joint just to, in case it fills up with dirt and gunk, we keep it limber so don't wear your hand out. And then the last thing is our handy dandy handsaw right here. And I didn't think we would need that today because we were just going to do a 3-year tree from a 2-year tree. And usually those trees are not huge. So this 1-inch should take care of most of everything. But because of the tree we have down here that is so ambitious today, it's got some pretty big limbs on it. So we may yet need our saw here. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do on this 3-year tree is remember, we're at a stage and point where there's tons of new growth in here. And that's great. That's what we wanted the tree to do at this stage in its life. We wanted it to get going, get established, get its roots going, get its branches going, get the leaves going. We weren't so worried about fruit. Because of the year of the tree, we're really going to be thinking a lot about structure of the tree. We're not going to be worried so much about the peach production yet, although this one probably will give us a few. We still want to be thinking a lot about structure for the next years, the 4-year and the 5-year, and get this tree set up so it can be productive for us. First thing we want to do is knock out some of this middle stuff because the structure that we're going to go after is called the standard open center structure. We're going to kind of form the structure into a bit of a martini glass or a satellite dish, and we're going to open up the middle so that there's not too much shading and the sun can get in and ripen the different angles of the tree, and we're going to kind of create a big bowl up in here. So one of the things to help open it up then, open up the center so that the sun can do that, is to cut out some of these center branches. So there we go. We got a few of those cut out of there real quick. And let me get a few more while I'm down here and just clean that up. And we don't need any of the ones that are too close into the crotch here of the tree. We want to kind of clean out initially anything that's too crowded in there, and that'll make some easy decisions for us to do some of those things first. So we're just cleaning out the crowding in here and chopping out anything that's easy to understand there on the first chops. Okay. There's a lot of branches here from all this growth. And even though we just did the simple little parts in here, the rest of the tree can feel a little overwhelming to people because you're seeing hundreds of branches in your face here. So what I like to do is just kind of understand generally what I want to do. I know I'm developing my scaffoldings, and I know that I'm going to select some of those. So maybe that's one thing I could do first is kind of say, well, look, I got my scaffoldings. I got one kind of headed south, one big one headed east. I got kind of a Y split headed west and northwest kind of. Now, remember, we only had 3 scaffoldings. The preferred is to have 4. And sometimes we even have 5, but 5 usually gets a little crowded. So really, the preferred is 4 if you can. So I think we'll try to build up 4. So I think we're going to end up keeping this, and we're going to try to prune this one in a way so that it kind of starts filling out into the north. And we'll let this one kind of work its way to the west here. So that's kind of just some general strategy here. Another thing is that if possible, we like to get about 18 inches from the main crotch here of the tree to the next splitting of the Y, if possible. Once again, these are nothing is, no tree is ever perfectly the same. It's kind of like a human. We're all quite different, but there are some similarities, and try to see if we can help the structure come out to the northwest. But start, especially this one here, is I'm going to take this branch that I know is headed north, and I'm going to look at this branch only. I'm not going to get confused by all the other tree. So there's some powerful branches headed out north here. We got this big powerful one here. It's got a bunch of big growth coming off it. And we got this one here that's close to the crotch. And we got these ones here kind of coming out. So usually I like to have I like to go another 18 inches to 16 inches and split it again. So that as the tree grows up in here, it Ys out again and forms bolls up into here. So I think I want to choose this one. So I'm going to head that off. And I'm going to cut out this right here. And I'm going to keep this big one right here. Now this one right here is too close to the splitting in here. And as this gets bigger, it'll crowd the joint right there. And we want the joint to remain strong. I'm going to cut it anyway. So I'm going to take the little duker off the back here. See how he's kind of a wimpy little thing anyway? We don't need that. And remember, we're thinking of structure today. So over here now, on the one that we kept, we have this one hanging down low. So we're going to get rid of that one that's hanging down low. And now we're left with three here. We have this one and this one and this one. And usually these two I don't like because they're both coming right off that joint and it's split. Usually what we like to try to do, again, if it's possible, is have the branches slightly offset so that as they develop and thicken up, they have room to do that without causing trouble for the opposing branch. Okay, we'll head these off now that they're there. And we can leave that if we want, or we can trim that. I just like to trim that. Okay, now we're going to come down this branch. And we're just clearing away anything too wimpy. It doesn't need it. We have the kind of the top structure. There's not too much structure needed, but we're looking for spacing. So we could keep this one right there and cut this one in between because there's another spacing about a foot apart and a foot apart on here. We're going to head that one off right there. And that'll give us some peach production and also send a branch out this way. Although in the future, I would imagine as this tree gets bigger, this branch will probably go away. But for now, it's nice to have for the tree. And then we'll cut that off and head those off. We'll leave this right here. Okay. And then right here, we have this branch we kept, and there's about a foot between these two. And so that one in between is going to go out. And we're going to keep this right here and head it off. And so we've kind of kept a nice spacing of branches in addition to the bowl we just created there going north. So now we'll come over to here. And this one is kind of going west. This one is a huge tree up in here. We don't need it that big. And remember, we're trying to build the structure of the tree. So we generally want this one to be at around this level of where that one's at. So we're looking for about 18 inches. It looks to me like that's going to be right about there. Okay, so we'll just head that off and head that off and trim that underneath one and get rid of it. Okay, and now that we have that kind of established, now we have one headed over here into this section. We probably don't need that, so let's get rid of that. And we don't need one headed straight out. We're trying to build some feathering coming out. This one is not too bad. We'll head that off right there. Again, this one has a nice space between the two branches. And this one's kind of close right here. We'll probably get rid of that. And this one is in between those two branches, so it's not going to do any good there. And there's one coming off the back. Now, these ones this one is on the other scaffolding. It's bothering this, so I know I don't want it anyway. So I'm going to get rid of it. And these ones are kind of too low, so I'm just going to get rid of those. Help clean that up. Now we just built the structure of this bowl up in here where it's going to develop, and we did a nice feathering off that side. Now we have these two branches protruding really strong out front, and what's going to happen to them, and you can already start to see it, they're going to go like this as they get the weight and the size, and we don't really want that. So these you could keep because they're strong. They will produce peaches this year potentially, but structure wise, probably by next year these would be cut out of there anyway. So the question is, do you want to let trees spend energy building these things out here that you don't really want in the long run, or would you rather have it put the energy into these branches we kept up here and some of the other branches we kept for production? So there's kind of a decision point. Long run, these are gone. Short run, is there anything beneficial to them we can have for fruit production? And I would say on that one, there's not. This one, you could leave it there like that, and you could leave it there for fruit production this year if you wanted. So now let's go to the branch that we're trying to steer west. And before we do this one, it's kind of confusing having this huge tree up here in the middle, because I'm trying to look at this branch, and this one is really has a lot of branches being thrown into it, so it's hard for me to even see what's what. So I think I'm going to come down here south first, and I'm going to make a decision on this south branch. So you see this big powerful one going straight up, and it is starting to bowl out that way. So it is possible that if you wanted to, you could work with this and try to keep that. Or you could try to work with the one that's coming out this way and try to work with this one. You can see right here, about 18 inches from the initial crotch, the branch is naturally trying to do a Y shape there. But it didn't happen there for it very good. It happened up here further, about a foot further. So you have a decision to make. Are you going to try to clean up the tree and work with this right here, what has already happened? Or do you say, no, this isn't what I wanted. I'm going to try to work with some of this stuff in here. Or maybe you say, boy, that's a big mess right there. Let me just cut that off, and I'll work with this one here that's kind of grown up tall. So maybe one of the things that will help us decide that is the fact that this tree is really close to the fence. So for us, we may say, hey, that's going to help me make my decision. You know what? I think I'm going to go with the one that's a little bit taller here, because as it grows and it develops, it'll kind of come out into here, whereas this one, as it grows and develops, is going to be out here hanging over the fence. So what we're going to do then is make a big decision right here. Big decision. And we're going to chop off this branch right here, and we're going to keep the one going up in this case. But remember, you could select this one if you wanted to, and you can select this one if you want to. It's just a choice. Both will work, but I'm selecting that one. All right, so now that I can get in here easy because that branch is gone, I'm just going to clean up a little bit of this stuff up in here before I go up and work on this scaffolding. Just a little bit of this stuff that we don't need in there. And you know, you don't have to be afraid to keep a few for some peach production down here. We're just trying to open up some spacing down here. And even if you keep it this year, doesn't mean you won't get rid of it next year. We're just trying to create spacing for the tree to be able to breathe a little bit there. So I'm just going to sharpen up my blade here for a minute. Just going to run it 2 times lightly over the front, once on the back, lightly on the front, once on the back. I'm just going to kind of repeat that pattern until it gets really sharp. Careful not to cut yourself. So the front part is kind of angled, as you can see, and the back part is just a straight edge. So there you go. So remember, we were looking at this one because it was kind of interrupting our ability to do this one. And one of the areas that's really bothering this is this thing jutting out this way. So what we're probably going to do, because we have 3 strong branches here, here, we're going to pick 2 of these, and I'm not sure which ones yet. Maybe those 2, or maybe those 2, whichever. But one thing we're not going to keep is probably this thing that's irritating the other branches, and plus it's filling up the middle of the tree. So we're going to take that right off of there. Notice a lot more space in here now. We can actually visualize this part of the tree. So we got one big one coming out here, nice. We got one here. I'm actually going to try to work with this one, even though it's coming off the back. I'm going to try to work the bowl so that this one kind of goes that way and this one kind of forms that way and fills up these 2 spaces as the tree gets bigger. So again, you got to think about a little bit about the future. So I'm going to try to keep that one. We'll keep a little bit of production on it. And we'll try to keep this piece right here. And we'll try to keep this piece right here for now. And we gave it 2 horns there. And we'll keep that. We'll cut that off right there. And then we'll trim that one. And trim the little horns on that one. And we got one coming out this way. I'll just trim that off and keep it. I could keep that. Actually, I could keep that one too instead. But I think you know what? I will. I'm going to keep that one and get rid of that one. And I'm going to get rid of this one right here. This right here, maybe it won't work out the way I think it will, but I can certainly try it. And if it doesn't work out the way we like it by next year, we can chop it right off. We're trying not to make too many mistakes, but at the same time, if we do make some mistakes, it doesn't mean that we can't fix it and work on it. And that's part of the fun of doing it too, to see how things develop and see what decisions we make and see what decisions the tree makes, and kind of form a partnership with our plants here and learn about them so we know what they like, and they'll learn about us too. They know what we like. And I'm pretty sure we all like peaches, so pretty easy. We got another little decision here to make. We've kind of kept some of these ones. And you can see we kind of just kept some feathered up the tree for production. And we're up here now where we kind of got 3 of these strong ones up at the top, forming the kind of going to form the new structure and bowls up when they grow. So we got to decide which one we're going to keep. So we're going to keep this one that comes out here real far, or we're going to keep one that kind of, as the tree gets bigger in the weight, I think we're going to keep this one. See, sometimes that tricks you. You think, well, this one's at the right angle, right? You got to think about the weight of the tree, and the branches do move in time. As they get weight on them and they get heavy, they stretch out and things move around a little bit. So I think we're going to take this one off the front, and we're going to keep this one right here, this big Christmas tree one. And we're going to keep those 2 branches and head them off. And we already did that one, so that one's ready to go. Okay, and that completes the one that was kind of supposed to be headed west. Move on to our south branch, which we already kind of started on a little bit. So before we fine-tune it, we're going to look at our structural first so that we don't waste time fine-tuning something that we don't want. So we got 1, 2, 3, and they're all kind of together. So that's not ideal, but I think I'm going to cut the one out of the middle here. So I'm going to cut this one right here best I can with the hand pruner. Now I'm lucky I got strong hands, so I'm able to push the pruner through an inch of wood. But if you don't, this is where the saw would come into handy. We got the 2 here, so let's work on these. So we're going to keep, and we remember now this is really high up here. It's almost 8.5 feet up here. So we don't want the tree to get too high. And you'll notice on the other ones we did, we're keeping it at about 6 feet right now, because by next year we'll keep it at about 7 feet, and then maybe 7.5 feet by the next year, so that it's topping out around between 7 and 8 feet. The tree should be topping out. We don't want it to get too huge. So let's trim this right here. Right here. Now I done it. Now I ruined the tree, didn't I? Okay, no I didn't. But, got that topped. We got our 2 horns here. Now if we want to, This is about 6 inches apart. We can keep this one for production underneath. You can see it has some buds on it. So those are decisions you can make. And you can do it. You can make those decisions. You can do what you need to do. All right, so now we have one kind of sticking out in front there, but I kind of like to have them feathered to create that bowl shape for the sunlight to penetrate correctly. This one isn't doing much. I'm just going to chop that one off. But we got that, so that one's complete. Just going to come up this other one now. Now this one's nice. This one's already spread out 8 inches, 10 inches, a foot apart, so we'll just head it right there at about, and when we're heading these, we're usually leaving, remember, this is a general rule, but we're usually leaving about 2/3 of the branch and heading off the other third. Sometimes it's more than that, depending on what we're up against. Maybe there's another branch close by. We don't want to. Maybe it's half, but it's going to be between 2/3 and half. Is usually maybe 60% is what you're trying to keep. All right, and then we'll head that little guy off right there. And let's decide up here what we're going to keep. I don't want it to get too huge out here. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to chop it right here, and I'm going to let this one and this one become the Y out here. The trouble is that this thing is getting so long out here. I don't want it to do that too quickly. I want it to get long eventually as it gets structured and gets strong. So I'm going to chop that right there. All we have left here is the branch headed east. Now this branch is a little intimidating. It's got a lot of stuff going on, but we can simplify it. I know one thing. We got to select the branches we think are our main ones first. So we have kind of a big one going up here, and then it Ys into two. Also have a nice strong one headed north, where you could potentially choose that as the Y, and that you would think to cut that one out. In fact, I think I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to cut that one out because I see that already. So if I see it, why not do it? Then I don't have to see it again later. Okay, I did that one. So we're thinking that those two are a Y now. We got one that's kind of hanging low in here. It's headed out this direction. And we would hope that, it doesn't hang so low forever, because we don't want it to come underneath this tree as it grows. So we want it to we almost wish it was this one right here, where it was kind of up in here, but it's not. So we got to think about how we want to deal with that. You could see how it kind of is headed up when it gets to here. So we could try to work probably with this one and maybe this one to form a Y. And if we chop that one right there on the bottom, then it would work with that. I kind of like this branch though too, because I have a feeling if we give it the correct spacing, this one's going to develop into something strong, kind of like this one did, but it might head out in this direction. So I think I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to head it off right here and Y it off. Okay. And then there's one for sure that I don't want to keep, and I think you guys all know which one that is. But it's pretty big, and I could get through it with my hand, but I want to show you guys how to use the saw for a minute. So here's a really good example of how to put the saw into motion. Okay, there's that one. We're going to head over into this branch, and there's some that are on the bottom side here. We're just going to get rid of those. We don't need them. And this one that's kind of coming out to the side, we can try to get some peach off it for now. The one that's straight up, we don't want. This one here is good. Let's see what we can do with it. I think I'll cut off that one and head that and head that. And then we have this little top piece that's left. We obviously don't want all of it. We can kind of choose what we want though. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut out the middle right there and head those off. And that branch is done. We're on to this branch coming up here. And we got two of them. So I think I'll just start over here on the one that's kind of north, and we'll see if we can work with it. Head that off, cut that off the back there. We don't need those right now. And we kind of have a Y-shaped here already, but I don't know if I like that one right there as much, but you know what, I'm going to keep that one. So we'll chop that one off and get rid of some of those extras that we don't need. Leave that. And then this one that comes straight out, we'll get rid of. Don't need the ones that are coming straight out. Okay, cut that one that's headed straight out. Cut that one. Let's keep that one. Cut that one. Okay. Let's clean up some of these little things in there. Easy ones. And this one you see has some peach bud on it. If you wanted to, you could keep that for production this year. Get a few peaches off it. Same with this one right here. You see how it has some coming off the front. But again, don't forget, we're thinking of structure. We're really trying to set this tree up for the future, because it's not going to give us that much this year. So I would just say, let's get rid of that one. Get rid of this one. And let's get rid of this one that's kind of, see how it's in a funny position there. And there's one coming off the face here. And then let's go down here. We'll get rid of that one that's straight up. Okay. All right, so that kind of finishes off this branch right here. And we're just going to come up here and finish this one off now, and then the tree's done. So this one right here, we don't have to keep, but it does have some strong buds on it. So I think we'll cut it right there, and we can let it be there. But remember now, if this thing gets going in here, it might steal some of the energy from down here, and it might shade that out. So structurally, I might not want to keep this. So structurally, I think it's going to go. So you can kind of see the difference between when you're pruning for peach production versus setting up the initial structure. Okay, here we are here. Let's see what we got up top here to keep. We got one here, we got one out the back, we got two kind of split here, but we can't keep everything. And we even have one kind of coming out this way. Remember, we have this coming down here too. And I just have a feeling that this one that's low, that's coming out here, will eventually get shaded out, and it'll probably end up getting cut later. And stuff like this one and this one that's up higher probably will be the ones that shade it out if we allow them to grow. And I think we are going to allow them to grow. I'm going to trim that one right there, because I think that's what's going to happen here. And I think this one will eventually go away, because we don't have a very, this one is hanging so low, it's going to get stretched as the weight gets on it eventually. But that could be 2 or 3 years from now. So that's why we'll keep it for now. And we'll just work on developing the upper branches, making sure that there's a pretty good amount of space so it can still have a chance to do something. This is almost like, you know, your insurance or your backup plan, that you have this here, but we're working on these too for the long run. Let's come up here now. I got these, and I think we're going to keep this one here that's headed out. It's got a strong branch on it. We'll just head that off. And I think that we will get rid of this one that's wine with it. And we'll get rid of this one off the back. And we'll keep this one right here. This thing right here we're going to keep. So we'll head it off right there. And chop out these little things we don't need. Okay, we don't need any of those. And this one's coming straight out. You see that one's coming straight out. And what will it do? Well, it's not going to do anything very useful. So again, we're thinking about where we want the tree to go, not where it's currently at. Now this one, you could keep. It's got a few flower buds on there if you want a few peaches on there. But I don't think we're that worried about it though right now. But yeah, we'll let that one stay. Let that one stay for this year. So there you go, guys. That's our completed 3-year tree for 2025. And I know it almost looks like a 4-year tree. It sure grew good. But it is a younger tree. And if all our trees could be that way, boy, we would do good on our farm if they could all be so strong. Thank you guys for joining us, and hope that spring is coming here real soon. We hope that all you guys get excited about your gardening and your trees and get out there and have some fun. And we'll see you next time.